From a secret underground bunker somewhere in the Arizona desert, 40 feet below the Earth's surface, two men, aided by their robotic artificial intelligence, Jennifer,
At your service.
hide from their wives and kids to discuss man stuff with interesting and unusual people. These men are the Bunker Boys. These men better get a hobby.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
Well, welcome back to the Boys show. I almost said something else. I don't know what I was going to say there.
Yeah.
Did it scare you?
Kind of.
I can be scary kids. I can be. And manic.
Hey, that was pretty good dance there.
Did you like that?
Yeah.
Too bad they couldn't see that. But hey, welcome back. We are glad to have you. And hopefully you'll be entertained by what we've dug up here.
Yeah, what do you got to talk about?
Well, there's a few things. One of the things that I saw, I don't know if you saw this on the news, this, I don't know where this was discovered, but there was this.
I didn't see it on the news.
Okay, well, I guess we're done talking about it then. Okay, heard it. All right, this is a story about a dolphin and a whale. It's a love story.
Oh.
Because it ended up in production of a baby called a wholphin. How about them apples?
Oh, they had a baby?
Yeah, a whale and a dolphin had a baby.
What kind of whale was it?
It was a killer whale. They're not really whales, though, you know. Killer whales are actually in the dolphin family. So I guess that explains why they were able to crossbreed, because they're in the same genus or something.
I'm sure the dolphin was a boy.
I don't know.
Well, how could a big old...
Don't even go there.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm just saying, how can a small dolphin have a whale baby?
I don't know, but I heard stories about Chihuahuas and German Shepherds, so I don't know what to tell you. What do you call those? Shepherds?
Chihuahuas.
Chihuahuas? I don't know. Which brings me to Elefinos. You know, I mean,
Those two, yeah.
you get those mixed breeds. But yeah, a wholphin, W-H-O-L-P-I-N, wholphin.
That's something.
It is something. I'm not sure quite.
What, were they in captivity or?
I don't know. I don't know any details on it. I just happened to hear it in passing, and I thought, that's kind of a weird thing. A wholphin. Never heard of one. Now you know the rest of the story, or some of the story, or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, I got an awe thing
Where are
for
those
you.
kids anyways?
I don't know. They're in the basement with Schmitty. He's holding court with people of his intellect. I'm going to hear about that later, I'm sure. But here's the cute story. There's a video out there on YouTube of butterflies sipping on turtle tears. Isn't that just lovely? Yeah, I knew you'd like it. Yeah.
There's those kids again.
Yeah, they're down in the basement, and I hope someone feeds them. Throw them a biscuit or two. They can fight over it. So, yeah, little turtle getting his tears sipped by butterflies. Isn't that just lovely? Aw. That's when they should have said aw.
Yeah.
And not yay. What the heck's wrong with you kids? You know what? You're getting demerits for that.
That's
Yeah.
better.
Okay.
Getting demerit.
Demerits. They don't even do that anymore. Don't even punish kids. They're afraid to.
Yeah. We'll go to jail.
You know, we used to get beat with boards if we did something wrong. But
Yep, sure
now
did.
it's like you don't talk to Johnny like that. He might get angry.
I used to get spanked all the time in like third grade, I think it was. I
Yeah.
had to go into the principal's office. He used one of those paddles with holes in it.
Oh, give you a little extra speed and
I guess so.
punctuation. Put holes in your pants. I've heard they do that. I don't know. I've never gotten a swat in my life from a teacher or a principal.
I have.
Yeah, well, see, I was a good kid, but you, on the other hand, you were a bit ornery,
Still
and
am.
nothing has changed.
Thanks.
You know, you're into fixing things up and making things better around the house. Well, there was a Turkish guy that was doing the same thing. He decided, you know, there's a wall there I could extend and make into a bigger room. So I'm going to do that.
Extend or take down?
Extend. He wanted to put a hole in the wall so he could make a doorway.
Oh, okay.
And then he was going to build another addition onto the outside of the house.
Got you.
Well, when he did that, he noticed a cool breeze coming through there. And he goes, well, wait a minute, that's not right.
Well, if there's a hole in the wall, nothing on the other side, there should be some sort of breeze blowing through.
It wasn't just wind, it was cold. And he had realized that when he did that, it actually punctured a hole. I guess it was up near a mountainside or something. I'm not sure exactly how it was built. But when he put the hole in the wall, it actually crumbled and went into a cave. And then he started investigating. He goes, well, this is kind of weird. I don't want snakes and bugs and weird stuff coming through there, animals. So he took his flashlight, started walking around, and he realized the inside's finished already. There were staircases and there were rooms.
Wow.
And he said it led to a discovery. It was an entire city that was attached to his house, but it was underground in the mountainside.
Isn't that something?
Yep. Turns out it was one of the biggest and largest ancient discoveries man has ever found underground. 18 stories below the surface.
Wow.
18 stories. 200 feet underground. And it was an entire city.
And that's something.
It was the ancient city they thought was a myth. It's called Derinkuyu. Easy for me to say. Derinkuyu.
Sounds like
8th and 7th centuries. So
Isn't that something?
And they thought it was like Atlantis, and it was maybe a mythical city that someone had written about, but it turns out it's a real place because they found it.
Did he find any treasures in there or anything?
They apparently didn't find anything of value, but they looked around the rooms, and I guess the streets were well worn from people walking them. The walls were smooth, but they were rock hewn. They were hewn out of the rock, and they had been chiseled.
Boy, I wonder how long it took to do all of that.
You know, I often wonder that too when you see something like that. You know, you got all this work, a whole city, what did I say, 18 stories?
Yeah.
18 stories worth. That's a lot of chiseling.
You ain't kidding.
I mean, in one room would be a lot of chiseling, let alone 18 stories in a whole city. So, amazing stuff. And they have pictures of it too. You can check that out on the internet. Very interesting.
That is.
Derinkuyu. And let's see how you spell that. Derin as in Nancy, Kuyu. Derinkuyu. Ever discovered anything weird like that in your house?
Yeah.
Any time portals?
Underneath the house.
Yeah, and probably bodies buried under there or something. Who knows? No, you had your house moved in here, so we know how old your house is.
Right.
Me too. And of course, the day I have mine moved in, as you know this story, they had to bring it in two halves because it's a manufactured home. They're bringing it through this real narrow area, and it's all dirt road up here. They said, you said it was the first time in 10 years that they had moved anything through there, right?
Just about.
Yeah. So I was worried they were going to collapse the road because there's some places in there that there's...
where the culverts are.
Yeah, there's some culverts where the water has to run through. Otherwise, the road gets wiped out. So they built the road up over the culverts and hard packed it down. And when you're bringing something in as big as a house, you're thinking, that's as big as a house. Something could happen there.
You ain't kidding.
So they bring it through, and just ahead of my house
was another house.
There was another house
coming
in. Ironically, the same day. This is the kind of stuff that I think God is, winking and joking with me about, because every time I do something like big, there's always some little joke like that happens.
Well, I think, wasn't it when the first house was coming through, they couldn't get it over the culvert because...
They crushed it.
Yeah, they were crushing the culvert.
Yeah.
Or the sides.
Which is what I was afraid was going to happen. And I thought, what are we going to do if that happens? Well, they had to fix it.
Yeah, they had to get a tractor.
So we didn't have to worry about it.
And they had to get a tractor and move some dirt up against the sides of it.
Yep. So what my guy did, since those guys were stuck, he went around them. Believe it or not, there was enough room around that road to get around that truck. And he was able to pull our house around him and cut him off and head up to my property. So, yeah, ironic.
That's when that other guy parked his single wide in your driveway.
Yeah, of all the weeks for this to happen, the week before they're bringing my house up here on this narrow dirt road, this man who lives up here in a camper,
I wish
guess.
I wish he didn't.
Yeah, he's an interesting
He's a
character.
troublemaker.
He has a problem. I guess his delivery service that was delivering this trailer that he purchased is a double wide.
No, it was a single wide.
Was it a single wide?
Yeah. Remember, it was that
yeah.
ugly-looking thing.
It was almost pink. That's right. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah. Well, it was huge and sitting in my driveway. He parks it right in the driveway. So I've got a house on the way, and I've got this mobile home sitting in my driveway. So I asked some friends of mine.
That was me.
To move it. Because I wasn't up here then. I was down at my other house.
That thing was heavy, let me tell you.
I'll bet. He had a flatbed truck. Our friend Bob helped move it.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get the jack up. Is that what it was?
Yeah, the tongue jack to lift it up, it was
Stuck in the down position.
Stuck in the down position.
You had to drag it.
Yeah. And,
which didn't make the mobile home owner any happier.
well, it
Because
wasn't
kind
our
of bent
fault.
it. Yeah, well, it wasn't my fault.
We've been asking him for
It was a month.
a month, yeah, to move it.
I asked him. Here I am saying it's the week of, but actually it was there a month before.
Right.
And then
Remember, because I called you, I said, "Hey, Chris, there's somebody parked their house in
said,
your driveway."
You said, I think, did you buy a pink mobile home? No, I did not. And mine's new. This one was like 1982 or something. But yeah, we finally got that out of the way, and it didn't make him happy. But
Yeah, ever since
gone.
then, Bob and him been feuding. The guy even pulled a gun out on Bob.
oh yeah, that was ugly.
And then that's when Bob and his wife moved.
Do you think it was for that reason?
Yeah, that's what his wife's told me.
She didn't want him getting hurt.
Yeah, she
'Cause
She didn't want any bloodshed.
Well, he took the gun away from the guy twice, right? Or at least once.
Once.
Yeah.
And the guy actually pulled the trigger and nothing happened.
Oh
the
my
second time.
gosh.
So that's when Bob's wife said, "Okay, that's it. We're out of here."
I don't blame her there, because you
Because
gotta
it would
get
have
along.
kept on going,
Well, that guy's wacky though.
He's a nut.
He would be mad at me because I asked him to move his trailer from my property.
Exactly.
It's like, what are you thinking, dude?
And then I'm standing there talking to him while the houses are down the hill,
Being moved up here. Yeah.
and he's yelling at me, "There's no houses coming up here. There's no houses. I don't know why you guys moved this thing. There's no houses." I says, "I just took my four-wheeler down there, and there's 2 houses coming up this hill right now." "Oh, there is. I won't believe it until I see it." Then a half an hour later, here they come.
Did he see them?
Yeah.
What did he say then?
Nothing. I left. I didn't want nothing to do with that moron. He was a nut.
Well,
His brother was okay, but
Yeah.
this guy was a real nut.
yeah, I talked with his brother. I never spoke to him.
Well, he caused trouble for everybody up here.
I've heard that.
Somebody took him to court and everything, and then he disappeared for a couple of years.
Oh, he was in jail.
I think he was in jail for pulling guns on people.
Well, he should be in jail.
Well, Bob talked to a police officer. I think you heard
Sheriff,
about this.
yeah.
The sheriff, yeah.
Because they're the only ones that come out here.
And he told him what was going on, and the sheriff said, "Shoot him."
Yeah. By the time he'd get here, it'd be an hour later.
Right.
Or that's if he left right away. So up here, you do have to kind of take things into your own hands.
Yeah, because we live in
Your safety.
Arizona, folks, that you could carry a gun.
Well, there's no harm in that as long as someone's reasonable. I mean, you've got unreasonable people all the time. I told you about that guy at the gas station. Every time somebody tells a story about someone being unreasonable, I tell them about I gave this gas pump up to this guy that wanted it because it was the only diesel pump. And he came up to me and he said, "Do you need that pump?" I go, "Yeah, I need to fill up." And he goes, "Well, that's the only diesel pump." I said, "Oh, I didn't realize that."
Well, didn't he tell you, don't you realize I have a diesel?
Well, after we got on bad terms, then he
Okay.
started saying that.
Yeah.
But at that time, he was trying to be nice because he wanted the pump. So I went around the corner. I went, just all the way around, and I'm on the opposite side of the pump, and I gave him the diesel connection. And so he's filling his pump up, and he starts bad-mouthing me.
He's filling his pump up.
Or he's filling his truck up. And as he's doing it, he's being a smartass, and he's saying to me, I don't know why you couldn't see I had a diesel truck here.
Yeah.
I said, well, it's not my responsibility to know what you drive. I said, I gave you the pump. I don't know what you're complaining about. Just let it go.
Yeah, let it be.
And he goes, well, you should pay more attention. I said, I'm supposed to know every truck and car that comes in here and know what goes in their truck? I don't care.
Exactly.
I don't care.
Yep.
It's not my fault that you didn't get to this pump first. It's your fault. You'll just wait. Next time you'll wait. I won't move.
Yep.
But, I was nice enough to give it to you. Now you're mouthing me. I said, how dare you?
Some people's kids.
So you need to grow up. He was like 30 years old. He goes, you don't know who I am. I said, well, you don't know who I am either. He goes, you don't know what I can do. I said, well, I hope you don't have to find out what I can do.
There you go.
So I don't care what quit running your mouth. You got the pump. Shut up.
Right.
And he just kept going on and on and on. And I said, look, you need to grow up. I said, you're just a kid. You need to grow up.
Millennial.
Yeah, he was. And I said, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Millennial.
He's a perennial. He's a plant. That's about how much brain power he had. So I left him have the pump, and he does all this stuff, and I thought, if he gets out of control, my wife will take care of him. She's sitting in the back with her pistol.
She knows karate.
No, she knows Smith & Wesson.
Yeah.
Actually, Ruger. They're made here in Arizona.
Yeah, you get it. Yes, they are right down by
right
where
down
I
the
work.
street. Yeah. So and I'm not like that. But I'm going to protect myself. I'm not going to let somebody run roughshod over
Oh,
me.
hell no.
It's just crazy. People are nuts.
They are.
I don't get it. And I try not to escalate it too much. I was letting them know, you're not going to do this to me. You're not going to, berate me after I give you the pump.
Mm-hmm.
And what's wrong with you? And if you honestly really felt that I should know what you drive, you're mentally ill.
Yeah, exactly. Well, just like the people driving anymore. Road rage. And,
Well, yeah.
well, my wife got rear-ended by another car yesterday coming home from work. I'm not kidding.
What happened?
Well, she was driving down the road and, down on the one town there, and I guess I could say it, Chino.
Yeah.
There was a car coming out of the parking lot there getting onto Highway 89. And when that car did, of course, the car before Mary had to slow down, so Mary slowed down. And the car that got out on the road stopped. Right
Why?
in the no reason. Nobody could figure it out. The guy behind him had to slam on his brakes, the person in front of my wife.
Right.
So my wife had to slam on her brakes, and there was a girl that was weaving in and out of traffic, my wife was saying, through the whole way home.
Trying to get home faster.
Right. Ran into the back of my wife's truck.
Oops.
Kaboom! Yeah. Bent the bumper down, we need a new bumper, of course. And
Were you able to look at the frame to see?
no, I forgot to look at it this morning before I came over.
Yeah.
When I go back home, I'll crawl under there and look at it. Last night when she got home, it was kind of sprinkling, so I didn't want to roll around in the wetness.
Yeah, I
But
don't
yeah,
blame you.
it's like that every time. People are nuts driving anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy. And what gets me, and I shouldn't throw young girls under the bus, but they seem to be the worst. Mm-hmm. Guys, some young guys are bad too, very bad. But most of the things I see that are just absolutely insane are done by these young girls in their 20s. They think that their car can stop on a dime. They think that you can stop on a dime. They'll pull out in front of you, think nothing of it. Mm-hmm. What really irritates me, and if you want to get into some driving stories, you're driving down the road, there is nobody behind you for miles. Nobody. And a car has to pull out right in front of you and slow down.
Yep. Happens.
What are you thinking?
Happens every time going to work.
Why don't you
Just about every time.
wait for me to go by and then pull out?
Right.
You've got miles before any other traffic comes by.
Yep.
But no,
No, I have to be in front of you.
got to be in front of you. And it happens to me 3-4 times a day.
And then you're driving down the road, 2-lane highway, going one way, 4-lane actually, 2 on each side. And then you're going down the road, and there's another car next to another car, and they're creating a gaggle. Mm-hmm. Nobody's going faster.
Right.
So everybody's getting built up behind them. Nobody in front of them. This is on an open road going, in between Chino and Prescott.
Right.
Big, long area, the plains area out there.
Right.
And then once the one car finally pulls his head out of his butt or her butt and goes a little bit faster than the other one, then gets over all the other traffic could pass, then the person over here on the right, you could drive by them and they're texting.
Oh, no. Oh,
Happens
man.
almost every single day.
What is up with people? It's just stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them can't even talk and drive.
Nope. They can't even
I
think
can,
and
but-
drive.
But, well, there you go. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
I had a guy, every time I hear that line, it happens all the time, I think of Poco. Crazy Love.
Oh,
Remember that
yeah.
song?
Mm-hmm.
It happens all the time. I had a guy on the freeway dogging me. I don't know why. I don't know what I did to tick him off. But he had a big black truck, which means, of course, he had a small brain. And it was jacked up, 3 feet higher than it should have been. And he's got all these chrome things on it. His whole life is wrapped up in his truck. And he's driving by me, and he cuts me off and slams on his brakes.
Wow.
So I go around him, and I go on my merry way, and I'm in the left lane now. And he comes over, and he runs out ahead of me, guns it, and shoves over and slams on his brakes.
You got to be kidding.
I never passed this guy. I didn't cut him off, ever. So I don't know what his deal was. Maybe he thought I was somebody else.
Could be.
But I'm going,
How
what
could he
is
think
going
you were
on?
somebody else with that bright vehicle you
Chartreuse.
drive?
Well, there are a handful of those out there, But you wonder, and I'm going, I don't know what I did. And my wife's, when Nick was a baby, he was in the back, and this was going on. So I slow down and I pull over, and he slows down and he pulls over. Wow. I thought he was going to get out of the truck. And then he guns by me, and I flip him off. And then he must be used to doing this because and I don't flip people off normally, but I was so angry because my son was in the car and he was threatening our lives. Mm-hmm. He was trying to run me off the road, all these different things he attempted. I looked at him, and as I flipped him off, he picked up this lollipop, the tongue depressor, those wide ones they use in the doctor's office. Yeah. And on it was glued a smiley face, and he stuck it up to his face. He had sunglasses on and a hat, and then a baseball hat, and then he sticks that up to his face like it's a big cheesy grin. I thought, this guy does this all the time. He does it for fun.
Yep.
I said, I'll tell you what, if they weren't in the car and I could have gotten away with it.
I don't blame you one bit.
It's like, you know what, dude?
Well, just like the fools out here on the dirt roads.
They fly up here
trying to pass you in there's no room. It's only room for one car, and they're still trying to pass you. Would you just wait to let it widen up, and I'll pull over for you, you damn idiot?
Yeah.
Get 3 feet behind you on a dirt road.
I almost want to pull across the road, get out, and say, if you'll give me just a minute, I'll pull over.
Exactly.
When there's room to pull over.
Mm-hmm.
Stop it.
They're nuts. Where are they going in such a hurry?
They wouldn't pull that crap out on the regular road normally. But they do on a dirt road because they think, there's nobody watching and there's no police.
Right.
So, but most people out here are pretty nice. I've gone to some of the meetings down here at the little community center.
Oh, remember what we were talking about earlier with the house, that knucklehead?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say his name, but
yeah,
the dumbass. We were going to work one morning. My wife was driving. And down there where the wash is, where we get the dirt, used to get the dirt for
to
the
fill
road.
in the road, the divots in the road, yeah.
Anyways, we were just a little ways up from that, and it's dark in the morning. It was during the wintertime, so it doesn't get light until later. We're putting down the road. We were in a little flatbed, and you can't go fast on these roads because all the rocks and everything else, boulders are sticking out.
Well, a person that's thinking wouldn't do that because you'd damage your vehicle.
Right. So we're just going to normal speed, maybe 15, 20 miles an hour. And all of a sudden coming up over the hill behind us, Mary says, what the hell? This guy's got his brights on. He didn't shut them off when he got up behind us. And he came up behind us like it was, in 2 seconds. So he was hauling ass. Mary was going to pull over once she got up to the top of the other side of the hill, where the road widened out.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to the right, before you get to the top of the hill, you run over some real tall boulders. So Mary, she always went off to the left, where it was a little bit smoother, and then went back to the right.
Mm-hmm.
So as we were going up the hill, Mary went over to the left, and right at that second, this guy tried to pass us. Now, mind you, it was the knucklehead that stuck his house in your driveway.
Oh, that guy, Mr. Hothead.
Right. He flew by us, went off the road where the big boulders are. I mean, rocks, big.
Yeah.
You know, you can't lift them, you can't move them.
Truck disabling rocks.
Yes. Kablam, blam, 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 blam. Ran over all that crap.
Are you kidding
No,
me?
I'm not kidding. Stuff was flying around, flying out of the back of his truck, and he just got in front of us and kept on going, right?
Wow.
Now, at the end of the dirt roads, turns into pavement, of course, where the railroad tracks are, where a lot of people park their cars because they don't want to drive on the dirt road. They have somebody come out and pick them up to take them back to home or what have you.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah.
I wondered if they work for the railroad.
No, that's either that or they carpool with somebody else going to work.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So they park the cars there. So anyways, he was stopped right there with his tailgate down with a little girl. I guess it was his niece. He was taking her to school, come to find out. And as we were driving by, it was, it's just the gray of the morning, just starting to get light now. Because, it took another 5-10 minutes to get out of the rest of the dirt road onto the blacktop. So he's standing there flipping us off and everything as we're driving by. And my wife turns around.
She flies her own bird.
Yeah, she flew her own bird. Screw you too, buddy. Yeah, that's.
What was his reasoning? It doesn't make any sense.
No telling. The guy, he's a nut.
You could say the color blue, and he'd get angry because that's not his favorite color, and you should have known that.
Probably. Yeah.
That's just mentally ill, and that's what you have to deal with sometimes with people. Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, that's basically when it all started with this knucklehead.
I'll tell you. I can get into some computer support stories because I did computer support for a long time, and I used to deal with some people that sold insurance. Let's put it that way. And they had to have their computers up and running to do business. And I understand that. I'm very patient with them. I explain things so that they can understand it because they may not be techie. And I do it in a way that I know that any reasonable person should be able to understand it. And they'll just give you all sorts of crap sometimes. I had a lady, I explained to her that I could not fix a problem, that I would have to get someone at our second or third tier to fix it for her. And I said, I'm familiar with what the problem is. I know how to tell them what the issue is, and they'll fix it. And she says, I want this fixed right now. I said, I can't do it. What do you mean you can't do it? You can't or won't?
Wow.
I said, I told you I can't.
Right.
If I could, I would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
And you try to explain that to people, they're just not reasonable. And then, so of course, she wanted my boss's name, and I gave it to her. And she talked to my boss, and I said, you're welcome to talk to the president of the company if you want. I have no problem with that. I've done what I can do, and I told you how to fix this. I told you what needs to be done, and I want to talk to a supervisor. I said, well, supervisors don't know what I know. I know more than they do about this. So why would you talk to them when I'm telling you how it can be fixed? And I'm telling you the quickest and most efficient way to do it. Let me deal with our second and third tier and see what we can get done. Well, I'm tired of waiting on this. I can't help that you're tired. I understand it's not fun.
Right.
No problem is fun. But you try to be reasonable with people, and they're just not reasonable.
No, they're not.
And then I talked to my boss. She later called me over to her desk and said, hey, I just got a message from this woman. And I headed the woman off at the pass. I told my boss about her first. And I said, this woman's just terribly unreasonable. And I told her the whole story. And then she called me over and says, hey, she made a complaint. And she made a complaint with me and someone above me and above them. I said, she can complain until the cows come home. Mm-hmm. I've done what I'm supposed to do. And she goes, you're right, you did. You did the right thing. I said, well, I've tried to help her. And I said, then what happened? Exactly what I said would happen. I talked to third level. They looked at it. They said, we can fix it. And they were kind of negligent. They had waited too long. They should have fixed it right away. But they didn't. They held on to it, and I don't know why. But things happen. Things drop through the cracks sometimes because they're busy. So I drew their attention to the issue. They fixed it within an hour and a half, and it was done. And now everything's okay. But this woman called me unprofessional, and I wasn't.
Well,
so, and even after you explain things to people, they just don't care.
sounds like she was unprofessional.
She was unprofessional and ridiculous, childish.
Exactly.
I have no patience for that. I mean, I'll try to be as patient as I can, explain things, but I'm not going to take abuse from people. No job is worth it. No job.
Well, I don't blame you one bit.
And the customer is not always right.
No, they're not. I have to agree on that one.
So I disagree with whoever came up with that phrase.
Well, the store owner.
Probably. It's you have to use patience. You have to be kind and considerate, but you don't have to take abuse. You don't have to be a smart mouth to them.
Don't abuse me anymore.
Again. So you just have to cut it short.
Where'd that come from?
What?
Don't abuse me.
I don't know. I guess you were mistreated at the home. That's not good.
I used to say that all the time.
You did?
No.
What do you say all the time?
You don't want to know.
Is it something that we could understand?
Yeah, really easily.
Okay, Garth, I have the solution.
Okay.
It'll just make you feel better. It won't solve anything. But if you just had this on your phone, like when somebody calls you that's irate and being miserable and not understanding and belligerent, you just put this on your phone. You go, you know what? I have a button for you. Here it is. Make them go away.
Is that an implosion?
That's an implosion. That's an explosion. I like how it kind of crinkles there at the end. So, you know what, lady? Here you go. I've got a solution for you. Listen to this. Now I feel better.
I don't blame you.
Sounds like your pants are smoldering. What do you think of that, kids? Huh? What do you think? Yeah. Now it's safe to go back in the street.
Beautiful.
I don't know if I've ever talked about this before, but remind me if I have. When I was in broadcasting, there was a guy that I looked up to and I thought had a great voice. And I thought, if I could sound like that and do a show and get paid, I would be in heaven. And this guy kind of, got that vibe from me. He understood that I thought he was a good talent. But as a person, he was a bit of a jerk. And he didn't know how to deal with people.
Did he like chicken?
I'm sure he did. Jerk chicken. Mm-hmm. I won't mention his name because somebody might know him, and I know he's still around. But he said to me one time, every time I spoke to him, he'd always put his feet back up on his desk, and I'll tell you, Chris, acting like Big Shot.
Oh, he sounds like one of those.
Yeah, yeah. When you get to be as big as I am, and and I said, what, in Akron? You're big in Akron. Okay, so you're a big time guy. Well, he acted pretty nasty to me and a buddy of mine, and the buddy of mine started working there, and he was calling him on things, and he'd say, well, that isn't true, Bob. It's not his real name, Bob. I'm using another name. Yeah, that's not exactly true, Bob, because this is the way it kind of goes. And he got really angry because now this guy is kind of countermanding what he's telling the rest of the staff. From that point on, he didn't like him. Well, one thing led to another, and Brad and I became good buddies, and I would be pointing things out to Brad and say, look what Bob did, or look what he said, or what kind of a knucklehead would do that. And he goes, yeah, I told you, he's a knucklehead. And I still looked up to him for what he did in his broadcast career earlier on, and I thought he had a great delivery, and I learned things from that. I always learn things from people I don't even like. So Brad tells me, just bide your time and then get out of here. And I said, yeah, I don't know if I'll ever be able to leave. He goes, don't look at yourself that way. You're a young guy. You got a good voice. You can move along. You can move to another station. And shortly after Brad left, I left because I did get another job. But one of the most satisfying things that ever happened, when a jerk gets in trouble or gets taught a lesson, it kind of makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It wasn't me that taught him a lesson. In a way it was. Well, anyway, there was a restaurant next door to this radio station. And he takes me over there for lunch, and he wants to talk to me because this girl in the office realized we weren't getting along too well, and she didn't want it to get out of control because I was complaining. And I really didn't care who heard me. I was upset because of how I was being treated. And she said, well, maybe I know him from another place I worked with. We worked together over there. Maybe, he's really not that bad of a guy. I said, I know sometimes he doesn't mean to be, But he just doesn't think, and he does stupid things, and it makes me upset. She goes, I know exactly what you mean, but maybe if you guys can become buddies and share some stories or talk, you'll get along better. I said, okay, it's worth a shot. I'm okay with that. So we go over there to this restaurant, and we're sitting there, and we have lunch together. And it was nice, it was pleasant. But the girl was sitting next to me, and Bob was sitting across from me, and he's telling these stories like he's the big cheese. Oh, yeah, back in my heyday, I did this and I did that and the other, oh, yeah, it's great to be king,
Well, how old is this guy?
And, well, he was in his mid-40s.
Oh, okay. And you were
I was in my
20s?
20s, yeah. I was like 23, something like that, maybe 20, maybe 21.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago. And the funny thing that happened was, this guy, he was bald, and he would wear a toupee when he'd go out to broadcast appearances. And it was a decent one, but you could tell it was a toupee. But when he was back at the station, he wouldn't wear it. And so we're having lunch, he's not wearing it, and he had this habit of dragging his hands across his face. He would, rub his nose and rub his eyes till you hear that wet, juicy noise, and then he'd drag it up over his bald head and then comb down the back of his hair. That was his thing he did, his little habit. Well, this one time he does that. We're here at the restaurant, and he's rubbing his nose and his eyes, and he rubs his nose last, and he drags it up over his forehead, and he drags this greenie from the end of his nose all the way up to the bridge of his, between his eyes. And I mean, I don't know how he didn't feel it because it was wet and green. And the biggest part of it was right on the edge of his nose. And that was a big hunk of green snot.
I wouldn't have said anything.
I said nothing.
Good.
I just stood at it and stared at it. And I was laughing. I was grinning. But he was telling kind of an amusing story, so he thought I was laughing at the story. And I didn't say anything. And then this girl that was sitting next to me, we'll call her Janice. And Janice was sitting there, and I bumped Janice under the table. And when he turned away for a moment, I kind of nudged my head toward Bob.
Right.
And Janice goes, oh, my God.
I can just imagine.
And she starts laughing. And she goes, I got to tell him.
No, don't tell him.
And because he's talking to the waitress now. And I go, I'm not telling him.
I don't blame you.
She goes, how long has it been there? It's 5 minutes.
Quite a while. It's starting to dry up.
So finally, she couldn't stand it anymore. She felt horrible. And she goes, Bob, you got that on your nose. He goes, what? And he rubs his nose, and then he realizes it's wet and nasty. And then he gets a Kleenex and wipes it off. But I left him sit there for a good 5 minutes.
And he was talking to the waitress?
Yeah, the waitress saw it. She's looking at me like, because I knew her, because I used to go over there in the evenings after my shift.
What a burn.
And she just stood there glaring at me like, and I told her, that's the boss. He's kind of a jerk. But, yeah. Anyway.
Well, here's a good one.
Okay.
I'd never met this lady before in my life, but anyways, she seemed like a snob. Okay. She was coming out on the boat to go fishing.
Okay.
And every morning, I'd hose the boat off, because there's seagulls and everything. They land on the handrails and they poop on the handrails. So I'd wash it off and make sure everything's clean on the boat. And especially on the gangway rails, walking down the gangway to the boat. So I have to spray those off because the seagulls land on those and go to the bathroom too. So anyways, I sprayed everything off that morning, and the people were standing up at the gate. And I said, okay, folks, come on down. And in between, when I sprayed them off and the people came down, a seagull landed on one of the rails.
Did more damage.
On the gangway rails. And left a big old one on there. And this lady's walking down, she thinks she's all
hoity-toyty.
Cool. Yeah. And swinging her hair all over the place. And, it was during the summertime, so she was in a bikini top and she had long pants on.
Oh, so she thought she was hotsy-totsy.
Right. That's what I'm saying. She's swinging her hair around. Has her hand on the rails going all the way down. And
sliding it up.
Didn't even know she got this big old glob of seagull poop on her hand, and she wipes her face and her hair and everything. And I'm like, oh my God. So she went, she finally realized she had it on her hand. She didn't realize she smeared it on her face and in her hair.
Oh.
So she went into the bathroom, or somebody told her, I guess. She went into the bathroom and cleaned up, and she came out, and she started screaming and yelling at me and everything. I says, well, what are you yelling at me for? I didn't do it. Well, you should have told me. Blah, 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 blah. Well, lady, I'm sorry, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
Speaking of seagulls, now this is spinning off into some weird territory here, but it's fun. I had an uncle that went to the zoo with us when he was visiting. He had never been to where we lived, and we took him to the zoo, and he thought it was cool. He was walking around with his little daughter, and at the end of the zoo trip, we're ready to leave, and my uncle looks up, and a bird goes right down in his face.
Ooh.
Right when he looked up. And that was kind of nasty and wet and just went down his face, into his shirt. And so we're looking around for stuff to wipe him off with. And we're using leaves. And finally we get into the main part of the building, and they had a napkin or something there, and they allowed him to use that. But that was just weird timing. He hears this bird, and he looks up, and boom, right there.
Yeah.
But the weirdest one was when my dad and mom were riding on their motorcycle.
Oh, I remember you telling me about this before.
They had a gold wing. And my dad, when it got hot, he would flip up his visor so that the wind would blow through his helmet a little bit because it got pretty warm. And he flipped it up, and then they were coming through a tunnel. Well, as they were coming through a tunnel, I think it was down in Florida or North Carolina. They were on this long bike trip. And he had the visor flipped up. And as they're coming up under the tunnel, he just happens to look up, and when he does, this seagull takes a dump, and they're going forward at a certain speed, and boom, right into his mouth.
Ugh.
And he's spitting and going, and my mom and dad, I bought them communicators when they first bought their motorcycle, so they could talk between their helmets with a little walkie-talkie unit, and it works really well. And it's, voice triggered, so whenever they speak, that's when it turns on. And my mom's going, what's wrong with you? He's going, and she's going, what's the matter? Are you okay? Then what's wrong? Why don't you speak to me? So a few minutes later, they pull off on the road, and he says, this seagull took a dump right in my mouth. And she goes, oh, you're kidding. And he goes, I wish I was kidding. And just as he said that, he's spitting to get it out of his mouth. And he flips his lower lip down, and he pulls out a fish scale.
Oh, jeez.
It was stuck between his gum and his lip. And he goes, yeah, I guess I know what that was. But of all things, a fish scale.
Yeah, I've been pooped on quite a few times.
Timing is everything, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Pretty wild, though. Wonder what kind of fish it was.
Only a fisherman would ask that question.
Uh-oh. You know what time that is?
I do. That means we've come to the conclusion of another award-winning show. Well, I guess I shouldn't say award-winning. I haven't gotten an award yet.
I'll give you an award, all right.
Okay, I can say award-winning then. An award-winning show, The Bunker Boys. Now we take you to Uncle Garth and his chapter on wisdom.
Yep. Strange but true facts.
Okay, tell me something.
Okay, it says here, in ancient Rome, it was considered a sin to eat the flesh of a woodpecker.
A sin? What does ancient Rome know about sin? They were the most corrupt society that ever lived.
Kidding. But why would they be eating a woodpecker anyway?
And how could you catch one? They're so fast.
No telling.
They didn't have guns. I guess they had bows and arrows.
That's an ancient Rome.
Slings of outrageous fortune. Something like that. Yeah, only in Rome. Well,
you have to go look at a trailer, huh?
yeah, that was tomorrow.
Oh.
Yeah, we're going to look at that camping trailer. That'll be kind of fun. I can't wait. I hope it's what I want, and I hope it's something I can purchase, that I'm willing to purchase. Because we've been looking for a while now.
Anyways, he's Chris.
And I'm Garth. No! Don't confuse me.
I knew I'd get you on that one.
You're Garth, I'm Chris.
Oh.
And we're both late for dinner.
Yes, we are.
And that concludes another award-winning episode of The Bunker Boys.
Yes.